down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone. Oh, shoot. Let me retry this again. I missed my captioning, my closed captioning deal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I am your host, Rick. Couldn't think of anything to say there, but I'm going to tell you, ever since Wednesday, we had a couple things that happened and popped this week that really have made me think that we need to stop coddling these leftists. We really seriously need to treat them like the petulant little children that they seem to be. And the reason that I say that is because they are passing out so many falsehoods and untruths, and they are, going after children and trying to indoctrinate them into their fold and all kinds of things that they have happening and going on within this just complete upside down bizarro world that they have developed with this. And I'm getting tired of it. And I'm not the only one. There actually is a great thing on Twitter, actually, is where I found it, but it comes from TikTok. But Glenn Greenwald is a conservative talk show host, podcaster, whatever you want to call him. I personally have not watched him, but I do pick up his Twitters every once in a while, and I got to tell you, he spouted off on his last show, and I picked it up on Twitter, and I'm going to play it for you tonight because I'll be honest with you, it's exactly what I am thinking. Exactly what I am thinking. And so, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. How am I getting ahead of myself, buddy? Buddy Weiser over on Rumble asks, you're getting ahead of yourself. Anyway, I don't know what he means there. We'll find out. Okay. So first things first, tonight I am drinking 4 Roses of bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I'm not, this particular version, which is the lower end version, isn't exactly my favorite. I think I'm better with the small batch or the single barrel. I like both of those. But yeah, so that's essentially what I'm drinking tonight. And of course, as usual, it is with the stones in the glass. And I can do this because it's not green. But there they are in the glass, and it's straight up other than that. All right. Okay. So next up, let me go ahead and bring in, of course, my sponsor, which is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. Quick pause here on that one. Definitely go and check out some of their blog posts. They are absolutely fantastic. Okay. So you should go and check out some of the blog posts. Most of them are put up by a guy who is very, very well versed in the Constitution. But you've got to check it out. You've got to check it out. And I would definitely check those out. But moving on, my affiliate link once again is IOTC whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC India Oscar Tango Charlie .whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. This is a fantastic keepsake. It is 1/8 inch roughly of leather, Saddleback leather, really tough leather, great stuff. The internal pages that they have are water resistant, and check out this binding. It is stitched and it goes all the way through the book, the pages in the book. Look at that. They have a 100-year guarantee on materials and workmanship. So if anything does happen, you can send this back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it, or if they can, or if they can't, they'll replace it for free for the life of this product. That's a 100-year warranty. This is buddy tested, buddy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior supported. He loves this book, got it for Christmas and for work in the Boy Scouts to get his Eagle Scout badge. He had some badges that he had to get, and this is the Constitution of the United States. He had to follow through and learn about the Constitution. Great product. You can head on over to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and pick that up. I think they're like $19, and it's just absolutely fabulous book. You can pass it out to people and support the show. And then also you can go and check out the Institute on the Constitution today and pick up any other books and information using the iotc.whiskeymusings.online link to pick up any kind of their course material and support the show as well. So go ahead and do that. And I thank them for being a brand ambassador, sponsor, affiliate, whatever other kind of adjective you want to add to that. I do appreciate that. They do some great work over there. And believe me, nowadays in this country, in this particular world that we have, we need it. Promise. All right, moving on to our next wonderful segment that we always do on Saturday night is On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the fabulous book, The American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is a fantastic, thick book filled with little factoids and everything about America. Anything that you really want to know, for the most part, is in here. There's like all little bits and pieces and parts and just stuff that I can't even cover completely in the shows. So anyway, I am going to read from today's April 22nd, the national motto. Look on any U.S. coin or paper currency, and you'll find America's national motto, "In God We Trust." The suggestion to recognize God on U.S. money initially came during the Civil War from Pennsylvania minister M.R. Watkinson. From my heart, I felt our national shame in disowning God as not the least of our present national disasters. Watkinson wrote to Salmon P. Chase, Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of the Treasury. Chase thought the suggestion was a good one. and he instructed the U.S. Mint to come up with a motto recognizing that, quote, no nation can be strong except in the strength of God, or safe except in his defense. The resulting phrase, in God we trust, may have had its inspiration in the fourth stanza of Francis Scott Key's The Star-Spangled Banner. The stanza is, then conquer we must when our cause is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. On April 22nd, 1864, Congress passed legislation authorizing the use of the phrase, in God we trust, and it first appeared on 2-cent coins issued that same year. For many years after that, the slogan appeared on some coins, but not on others. In 1955, Congress ordered it placed on all U.S. currency, and in 1956, Congress made "In God We Trust" the official national motto. The phrase continues to remind us that our country has long found strength through faith in God, and that he has bestowed many blessings on America, including our freedom. And that is today's On This Day in American History. Now, it's kind of funny that we talk about the "In God We Trust." I mean, I know some people have, maybe you remember I played the breakdown by Red Skelton of the Pledge of Allegiance, and how the Pledge of Allegiance had the term "under God" put in it, and how his concern was that the pledge would then immediately become a prayer in schools and get pulled out. It's kind of interesting that they haven't attacked "In God We Trust" yet on our money. Damn leftists. But, whatever. Anyway. All right. So moving on, let me get a little drink here because it's a little hotter than usual here in the studio, in case you haven't noticed. But anyway. All right. So a couple of things happened this past week, one of which I'm going to actually discuss a little bit more tonight. I've got some articles and things to kind of cover it. But the other thing that happened is, if you were watching, the Republicans in the House put forth a proposal for a bill. And in this proposal, it was the Protect and Defense of Women in Sports, I believe. I can't remember the exact phrasing of the title, but the thing is that it was specifically calling out women's sports and how transgender women, aka men, are sliding into women's sports and literally demolishing them. I mean, everybody knows about Leah Thomas, but it's not just Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas is just the more well-known because of people like Ryla Gaines who are speaking out against it. But you more so than you have track and field people that are being taken over and crushing. You've got weightlifting now. You've got all kinds of spaces that women have traditionally owned as their own, and they're basically being shoved out by these men who are pretending to be women. And by pretending, I mean they go and they dress up and they maybe they're on hormone therapy, maybe not. But the thing is that I'm finding amazing is the fact that we have a bunch of Democrat women, and the Republican women are speaking out against it. I mean, let's just face it. The Republican women are speaking out against these kinds of things. But the Democrat women are just kind of like rolling over. And I seem to recall how many of them were like, marching in the streets about Trump, talking about, grabbing some of their yoo-hoos, we'll call them, but grabbing their private parts in private and, things like that. They were marching with these pink hats on, and they were causing all kinds of a ruckus, and they were doing this all across the United States before he got elected. And they were trying so hard to get him, taken out, and they called him a misogynist, and they called him all these different names and everything else. And yet all of these Democrats are quiet on the actual fact that transgenders are taking over every single one of their spaces. You have transgenders who are taking over Woman of the Year. You have transgenders taking over spots in acting and advertising. You have transgenders who are basically men acting as women, and they're just monopolizing everywhere. They're walking into women's restrooms. They're walking into locker rooms. They're exposing themselves, which under normal circumstances would be considered a crime. And they're doing all of these things, and they're getting away with it because of the fact that we are not paying attention. And we're not putting up, and especially women are not putting up enough of a fight. Now, I'm not talking about conservative women, because conservative women have consistently been, speaking out about this. But I'm talking about all those Democrat women who were so offended and so taken aback by a alpha male making comments about females and how they would throw themselves at him because of his popularity and his money and, in superfluous values, to say the least. But they would literally throw themselves at him. Now, I'm not trying to, argue over the fact of what Donald Trump said or did, whether it was right or wrong. That is irrelevant to the conversation. The point is that these Democrat mostly white women were standing up and making a stand, and they are not using that same courage, that same strength, that same vehemence to go against somebody who is not just talking about them or saying things, but who is actually doing it and destroying them. And I'm sorry, but I'm done. I am done. I'm finished with this. I spent the last several days on social media calling them out, calling out the women that are out there for not calling out these people. And honestly, look, I've said it before on this program, and I'll say it again. If you happen to be transgender, okay, that is something that you need to deal with, whether it is something mental that you need to deal with, whether it is something you've decided and you've gone through the therapy and the treatments and everything else, and you have to transition. Great. The problem that I have here, though, is the fact that your numbers, honestly, are relatively low up until recent years, where we've made it into, where our society has made it into a huge deal. Now, if you're being discriminated against for those choices, if you are literally having your rights taken away because of those choices, I am all on board with you. You should not have your rights taken away. But at the same time, you need to understand that your rights don't trump, for lack of a better term, somebody else's. Again, I am of the belief that I can do what I wish to do, and other people can do what they wish to do, as long as we don't infringe on each other. As long as I am not impacting you and you are not impacting me, we should be able to go through our lives here in America completely fine. There is no reason why we should have to convince others to dive in on something that they don't want to do. And that goes for religion. It goes for sexual orientation, anything that is that kind of a scenario. But the problem here is not so much that you as an individual live that way. The problem is you're trying to force others to buy into the way you live. If they disagree with the way you live, that's it. They disagree. There's no reason to sit here and dive into this. I hold the same belief, believe it or not, with just about every political position that's out there. Whether it's abortion, whether it's, being gay and wanting to have a marriage, or any of that. I actually think, in most cases, 90% of the time, that the government shouldn't even be a part of it. Because 90% of the time, the federal government in the United States has no business being in there. And that is written right here in the Constitution. And I am appalled by so many people who don't have an understanding of this document right here. It doesn't take a genius to read it and understand it and to ask questions and to dig into the actual purposes and not just buy into what the mainstream media and the left are trying to say about it. Okay. That being said, I am also tired of a bunch of other things. I'm tired of the lawlessness. I'm tired of the lack of accountability. I'm tired of the fact that we have literally a government that is in place because of the fact that somebody somewhere decided to make a choice and cover up a key piece of truthful information about one of the candidates. And I'm probably going to get kicked off of YouTube for this one. But again, I'm going to maintain the Hunter Biden laptop and the suppression of that story was the number one thing nationwide that affected the 2020 election. End of story. And now we've got some new information on that. I've got that here in a minute. But I digress. I did promise you this video, and so let me go ahead and bring this up. Now, I apologize for the quality of the video itself. You need to understand it came from Twitter and was compressed, which, of course, it came from TikTok, which it was compressed from that. So I apologize for that. But just listen to what Glenn Greenwald has to say about this particular situation. And it's going to be a long one. It's going to be a long one, just so you understand. But you need to pay attention and just listen. And here he is.
I think I just have to say it like this. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. I am worn out. I am fed up. I've had enough. I am tired of exposing corruption, doing our homework, going overseas and having documents translated to make sure they're exactly right, presenting the evidence. We know what's happening, except then once we expose it, nothing happens. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody pays for a damn thing anymore. Nothing. If you and I did half the things that people in Washington do every day, you and I would go to prison. Clinton got away with it. Even the left knew that the Clinton Foundation was dirty. They sold uranium to our biggest enemy, Russia. Nothing. No. She can take confidential, top secret emails and put them on her server at her home, something you and I would go to prison for. We would be in prison for the rest of our lives. Not a big deal. Benghazi? No. Not only did we show you that we were gun running to a group in Syria that became ISIS, that's what we were doing in Benghazi. Not only that, but just the killing of a U.S. ambassador, and, might I point out, on Veterans Day, we abandoned our troops. Did anything happen? Nope. Nope. Mm-mm. Nothing. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of actually being open and saying, okay, well, let's look into the spying on this presidential candidate. That's a pretty hefty charge. Were they doing it? And then finding out, yes, they were, and nothing happens. He was colluding with Russia. My gosh, that should be the biggest scandal of all time if that were true. If it wasn't true, and it was started, and evidence, paperwork even showed that they knew, all the way to the White House, you'd think that would be even a bigger story. Lying to the FISA courts, nothing. Creating an enemies list, nothing. Using our own intelligence agencies to assist in this operation. Spending millions of dollars on a claim they knew that wasn't true. The collusion on Russia, they knew it before the president was ever elected. A scandal. The loss of billions of tax dollars in Ukraine, no big deal. The lies and the collusion with the Obama administration in Ukraine, no big deal. Hunter Biden, forget about Burisma. What was that, $7 billion? Who cares? Look at Hunter Biden and his father in China. Oh, but we don't have any proof of that. Yes, we do. We have all the proof anyone who cares to be honest needs. We have all the documents on his own frickin' laptop, which have been verified for people that were working with him, who were Democrats that had those same emails on their computer. Nothing. The scandal of our Justice Department, the deep state, which I didn't believe in 4 years ago. My gosh, you've got to be dead and probably voting in the last election if you don't see the deep state. The corruption of our media telling us to deny our own eyes. There's a car on fire, and they're like, oh, nothing's happening here. It's totally peaceful. There's a car on fire behind you, but we're not supposed to notice that. Good has been made evil, and evil is made good. They ask you now to don't believe your own eyes, believe us. Our country is being torn apart on the streets by radicals who are marching with no Trump, no Biden, no America signs. But don't worry about that. This is just a peaceful group. Really? Our children are being indoctrinated with all kinds of crap, telling them that they're racist because of the color they were born with. The teachers' unions completely out of control. The lies of Black Lives Matter, Inc. And no one seems to care. No one seems to care that Black Lives Matter is actually a corporation. That Black Lives Matter, on their own manifesto, said they wanted to destroy the nuclear family. But that's all fine. Antifa? No. They're not wild in the streets. That's only an idea. Yeah, kind of like Nazism was an idea. But yet, if you support the Constitution, if you just say, I want a fair and legal count, you're a radical. You're an anti-government zealot. I've had it. I've had enough. I almost didn't make the show last week because this is what I wanted to say to you. Except it would have been followed with, so see you later.
All right. So as you can see, it's not just us, folks. We're not the only ones that are frustrated. I gotta be, I got into a conversation, and this kind of leans toward it. I got into a conversation. There's a gentleman on Twitter that he is a strict constitutionalist, such as myself. And he and I have gotten into some back and forth about the Constitution. We've gotten back and forth. And Music Man, by the way, that is Glenn Greenwald. It's Glenn Greenwald who is saying that. He actually is a conservative podcaster. Maybe it might have been Glenn Beck. I think it is Glenn Beck. My bad. Glenn Beck, not Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Beck. You are correct. Okay. Nope, it is Glenn Beck. All right, I was wrong. It's Glenn Beck. Anyway, he's a conservative podcaster, streamer, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I've never watched him, but I can tell you that is just, it's just an incredible speech. And, you know, it seems like it's off the cuff, and he's demonstrating what a lot of us are feeling right now. And I, if you get the chance, you can look it up. You can look it up, and take a look at his shows and stuff like that. But he's basically voicing exactly what I think a lot of us feel. And, yeah, according to Buddy Weiser, Glenn Beck had a show on Fox for about 10 years, which, you know, kind of is par for the course, I guess, for people on Fox, because, you know, Dan Bongino left. By the way, again, Dan Bongino left because of the fact it was contract negotiations that broke down. Okay. But anyway, I digress. So the thing about it is that I, as an American, I am sitting here, I'm disgusted over the fact that we literally have a two-tier justice system. We literally have the entire breakdown of everything that America values. Whether it's, you know, religion, it's family, it's freedom, it's equal justice under the law, it's all these different things. And here we are, the left is taking it and throwing it away. So you know what? We need to just quit. I'm done. Now, I'm not talking about taking to the streets and beating people up and, you know, doing something physical. What I am talking about, though, and what I'm going to start instituting is I'm not taking any prisoners. There was a conversation about the whole Bud Light thing. Oops. There was a conversation about the whole Bud Light thing. Sorry, green screen fell down. All right. There was a whole conversation about the whole Bud Light thing. And there was a question with regards to whether or not we should, okay, now that, you know, the person who is responsible has been put on leave, AKA potentially fired, things like that, you know, should we stop? No. I'm at no quarter given anymore. No quarter given. I am not going to give these people the satisfaction, because that is something that the Republicans and the right have consistently done over and over and over again. We've capitulated to these people. I'm finished with that. I'm finished with that stuff. I'm done. I've had it. No quarter given. Bankrupt Bud Light. Bankrupt Disney. It's time for us to stand up for what we believe in and not just get an apology. You know, I'm sorry. First of all, that's assuming, of course, that they're actually even apologizing for it. Because one thing that I found about these leftists, they don't apologize. They don't care. They don't care. It's kind of like the whole idea of being able to lie. They lie all the time and they just don't care. Doesn't matter. Because they're never held accountable, you see? So we need to stop this. We need to stop giving them the time of day. I'll be willing to entertain their conversation for a short period of time on places like Twitter or whatever. But after that, if they just do not, if they're coming to me in earnest, I'm okay with that. But if you come to me and ask a question, and I provide the information and the data and the facts to back it up, to back up my position, and you don't want to take it and you tell me that I'm lying, that's it. You're done. I mute them immediately. I'm like, that's it. You come at me and start calling me names without knowing who I am? Yep, that's it. You're done. I'm done. I don't play around anymore. We need to take the kid gloves off, and we need to understand, they need to understand that we're not playing anymore. And I hope that McCarthy holds the line for this budget. I hope that McCarthy and Jordan and the rest of these people who are investigating all this stuff, they hold the line for all of this stuff. I'm done. I'm just done. You know, these people are acting like petulant children, and so it's time for us to treat them as such. You know, if you listen to an adult or a mother or a father, a parent, who has one of those types of children that always pushes the boundaries, you'll first hear them start off with, you know, sure, yes, okay, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the next thing that you hear from them is usually a little bit more of frustration. And then finally, you'll hear the end piece where that's it. And once the frustration and the buildup is all taken and manifested itself, you're done. Then all of a sudden, the child learns to fall in line and realize, hey, I crossed a line I probably shouldn't have crossed. That's where we are right now. We've got a whole bunch of petulant little children running around talking about all this stuff and saying that they can do this and do that, and whatever they feel, that's who they are. And you've got to give them credence. And you've got the left who is sitting there saying stuff like, oh, you're a teenager, so you know what? You really are smart. You know what you're doing. Science has shown us multiple times that their brains are not fully developed yet until they're 27. I've maintained this, and I'm going to keep maintaining it until completely shown the opposite direction. But I'm finished with this. I'm not going to listen to anybody who is college educated and has zero real world experience. You can be college educated. I carry a bachelor's degree. I have one. Okay. I got it late in life, but I'm not going to sit here and kowtow to anyone. It's time to take the Ronald Reagan approach, like he did with the Berkeley riots. In it, he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, but you people, who meaning the adults in the room who ought to know better, told those young people who were rioting that they could choose which laws that they could break. And you allowed this to happen. So guess what? We're allowing it to happen. We've allowed it to happen for 40, 50 years. It's done. We need to quash it now. We need to stop. We need to stop right now. Okay. And for all of you who are sitting out there who are saying that Joe Biden is not corrupt or anything else, well, guess what? Sorry, but he is. He's here. He is corrupt. Joe Biden is clearly corrupt. And I'll explain that right now. So more evidence has come out about the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, which again, I have maintained, and I'm going to still maintain that October surprise, hiding it, protecting it from having it released in the general media and the general public. Okay. Those people who did that influenced the 2020 election. Okay. They did. That is, in my mind, that is the one singular thing that 2020 was affected by across the board, across the entire U.S. Now, again, I'm telling you, there are certain incongruencies that should be checked into, so on and so forth. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on. You got, the whole Kerry Lake thing. There's still some lawsuits that need to get taken out. But this particular thing, making sure that the Hunter Biden emails, the Hunter Biden laptop, and the information contained within were suppressed and protected was the most singular event of 2020 that prevented Trump from getting into the White House. You've seen the polls. They've been out there. 16%, almost 20% of the people who've been polled say that if they knew that the laptop was not only real, but that it was essentially that everything on it was true, which we now know is true. If they'd have known that, they would not have voted for Biden. They would have kept him out of office because he only won by 4%. When you do those kinds of math numbers and extrapolate stuff like that, there you go. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is breaking news. This is a developments, not breaking news, but developments, new developments that all need to be paid attention to. And not a single person on the mainstream media is watching this. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Item number 1 here from the Post-Millennial. A former CIA chief, his name's Mike Morrell, he testified under oath that the Biden campaign and Antony Blinken asked him to orchestrate a letter from which 50 intel officials falsely claimed the Hunter Biden emails were Russian disinformation. We already know this. There's other CIA officials who signed the letter who basically said, yeah, I probably shouldn't have signed it, but I mean, it had the earmarks of it. Just a couple months ago, you would have noticed that that person, if this had been a serious media, you would have noticed that person who came out would have broken the entire story a few months ago. But no, they kind of covered it up. And I'm sorry, but this is essentially the truth. We know it's true. Hunter Biden tried to sue, or is trying to sue, because it hasn't been taken out, but he's trying to sue the owner of the shop where the laptop was found. He's suing them. So he's essentially, by suing that shop, he's basically admitting that the information that was put out there is his. I mean, come on. There's photos, disgusting as they are. There's photos of him doing, and videos of him doing Russian hookers and drugs and all kinds of stuff. It's not possible that this information is not his. Well, the little nuggets that are inside are his connections to all of these other entities, foreign entities. And again, Hunter Biden, his family, and Joe Biden none of them have claimed to be foreign agents, meaning they haven't registered as a foreign agent with the United States government saying, hey, I am advocating for a foreign entity. Never once has. And that's just even the start. When you start looking at China, you also have the entire the entire Ukraine thing that Dan Bongino actually filled out. That's like chapter number 1 in his book, Follow the Money. Anyway. And what's even worse is now you have other whistleblowers that are stepping forward. For an example, there was an IRS whistleblower that came forward here just the other day. And that IRS whistleblower is basically saying that their investigation is being blocked by the White House and a high-ranking official. Well, apparently the New York Post has uncovered, and it's now being carried by some other news outlets, but the New York Post has identified that the Attorney General Merrick Garland is the senior Biden official in the IRS whistleblower's claim. I'm going to tell you, we dodged a bullet with Hillary Clinton getting into office. Guess what? We dodged a second bullet by this guy not becoming a Supreme Court justice. I'm just going to tell you right now, there is just no way. I believe in God and the divine, and I'm going to tell you, he was doing his work those days when we avoided getting both Hillary Clinton and Merrick Garland into place. Just amazing. But apparently, according to this IRS person, He's alleging, so his attorney, the IRS person's attorney, Mark Little, wrote, Lytle, wrote Wednesday that a longtime IRS employee wants to provide information to congressional leaders to contradict sworn testimony to Congress by a senior political appointee who has now been identified as Garland, and also to detail preferential treatment in the criminal probe of Hunter Biden. The whistleblower already made disclosures to the inspectors general of the Treasury and Justice Departments. However, due to a quirk in federal law, he needs congressional approval to more fully describe his allegations to his own lawyers, which he wants to do before testifying to lawmakers. And Garland, of course, has repeatedly claimed under oath that the Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who is a Trump administration holdover recommended in 2017 by the state's Democratic senators, I think that's a little bit of a problem, is able to criminally charge Hunter Biden without the permission of other Justice Department leaders, despite Republicans challenging the factual accuracy of that claim. I don't know about that. I would have to look into that. But Garland, in April of 2022, told Senator Bill Hagerty, a Republican from Tennessee, that there will not be interference of any political or improper kind in the investigation of Hunter Biden led by Weiss. Garland says he is the supervisor of this investigation and added that we put the investigation in the hands of a Trump appointee from the previous administration, who is the U.S. attorney for the District of Delaware. And you have me as the attorney general who is committed to the independence of the Justice Department from any influence from the White House in criminal matters. Bull crap. Just kind of put it out there. BS. Total BS. This guy, I swear, he lies like a rug. A bearskin rug. Yeah. Anyway, the point being is that if this is true, assuming that this is true, and Merrick Garland is the individual who is blocking him, he joins a fantastic crowd of people who have helped to cover this up. Not only the Secret Service with regards to Hunter Biden's weapons mishap, but also deals with things like this next gentleman who is, let me see. I think I got these out of order here. Let me see. Nope. Okay. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but Antony Blinken, there actually is no H. Antony Blinken used to work for the Biden campaign prior to becoming the Secretary of State. Well, he was apparently implicated as part of some of the conversation where he pushed for and recommended for the CIA, the 51 CIA people, to write this letter and dispute and call it Russian disinformation, literally in the attempt to subvert the election. Okay, well, high-profile Republicans, this is from the Washington Examiner, high-profile Republicans call on Blinken to resign over the Hunter Biden laptop letter. Absolutely, he should. So two high-profile Republicans are calling on Secretary of State Antony Blinken to resign or face impeachment charges in the wake of allegations that the Biden administration official intentionally misled the public on the Hunter Biden laptop case to help then candidate Joe Biden win the 2020 election. Andy Biggs of Arizona and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin called on the top Biden administration official to resign, arguing that such efforts should disqualify him from leading the State Department. Let's talk about our allies who now don't trust us at all, Biggs said in an interview with Just the News. And why would they? They think we're weak, untrustworthy. How in the world can he remain our spokesman to the world? I just don't see how he can, and he should go. I think he's irreparably harmed the United States. Johnson reiterated Biggs' call for Blinken to resign, arguing that he should be impeached if he doesn't agree to step down. Again, so many members of the Biden administration have this level of deceit, dishonesty, and corruption, Johnson told the Star News Network. This is a lawless administration. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've kind of heard that Biggs is one of those mixed kind of people. He's got like 50-50 split. Some people like him, some people hate him. And I'm not too thrilled about that, having him being in charge, but or having him as one of the people in charge. I'd much rather have somebody with an impeccable reputation to be in charge, but still, the point is that this whole thing is just a complete cover up. And yeah, so the Biden campaign essentially did everything they could to suppress the story as a way to prevent voters, this is in the piece, as a way to prevent voters from making fully informed decisions during the 2020 presidential election. Now, if you recall, the timing of the information coming out was all in October. This was supposed to be, the Hunter Biden laptop story was supposed to be the big October surprise. And when it first came out by the New York Post, by Miranda Devine, when it first came out, they got kicked off of Twitter, which we now know Twitter was operating as a de facto propaganda arm of the Democrat National Committee, as well as the U.S. government and the FBI and everything else. We have a bunch of other situations where, people were kicked off of Facebook. I myself have been kicked off of YouTube or suspended from YouTube twice for even mentioning the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop is the number one thing that was screwing up the election of 2020. Well, I fully expect that if somebody goes and takes a look at this video, I'm going to get kicked off of YouTube. For all of you 110 people who have subscribed to me over on YouTube, if I do get kicked off, you'll know where to go. Come on over to Rumble. But the point being here is that we are dealing with probably the most corrupt administration in recorded history. I mean, Nixon is rolling over in his grave. He's like, I only broke into or commissioned someone to break into the Democrat National Committee headquarters. There wasn't even like a full connection to me, and I resigned for this, and we've got all of this stuff. It's like, this is just nuts. I'm sorry. It is. And of course, true to form, the White House is bringing out the whole House Judiciary Republicans of highly misleading Hunter Biden leak. The White House spokesman, Ian Sams, is apparently pointing to a fuller transcript of the former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morell's testimony to lawmakers and said, House Republicans are misleading the media. Gee, do you think that maybe you guys started it by cutting particular people's, creatively cutting the way somebody says things? Okay. Yeah, I don't think so. So anyway, Ian, in this piece, White House spokesman Ian Sams accused the House Judiciary Committee Republicans and Chairman Representative Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, of making a highly misleading selective leak regarding Secretary of State Antony Blinken's alleged role in discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop story. In a letter sent to Blinken Thursday, Jordan and the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner, a Republican from Ohio, revealed testimony from former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morell, whatever, however you pronounce it, who said Blinken, then senior advisor to President Trump's campaign, was the impetus of the public statement signed by current and past intelligence officials that claimed the Hunter Biden laptop was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Okay, I'm gonna step aside for a second. I'm gonna say, you know what? I could see that if a few months ago, and I even covered it on this show, if a few months ago another CIA official had come out saying, you know what, I really regret signing that letter, and I signed it knowing that the information was potentially true and correct, but I didn't have any other information, and that, it was suggestive of a potential Russian disinformation campaign, but I did not know 100%, and I felt that the information was true and correct. If we didn't have that guy 2 or 3 months ago that said this, there's no way that I would necessarily jump in the hat and say this guy's lying. But now I'm saying it. I'm literally pulling out and saying it. This guy is trying to do essentially damage control and cover this up. Now, the funny thing about all of this is that even the mainstream media outlets that are the propagandist outlets like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, all of them are starting to sort of carry, albeit modified, articles and things like that on this entire situation. And so you have to ask yourself, Dan Bongino does this all the time, you have to ask yourself why. And part of it could be because of the fact that, and Dan pulled this out, I'm not going to take this from him, but Dan basically said the reason why is because they don't want Biden to run. And Biden's about ready to announce his candidacy, likely to announce his candidacy for 2024 next week. And so they have to figure out a way to keep him from running. Now, the funny thing about this is they literally don't have anybody in the wings. They're throwing a bunch of information, or they're probably going to throw a bunch of weight behind Robert Kennedy Jr., who, to be honest with you, I haven't really delved into him yet, but his biggest claim to fame has been being an anti-vaxxer, not just for COVID vaccines, but for every vaccine. And so even though I'm hearing and I'm reporting from people, from trusted sources, people I believe have done their own homework, I'm hearing from them that they are that he basically is claiming some things that have never been able to be proven about vaccines. So I'm a little torn on who they're actually going to put forth in front of or for Biden. They certainly can't go with Kamala, because Kamala is just a freaking disaster in her own right. But the thing about it is I'm not entirely sure that RFK is actually going to have enough to push him over the limit, and that kind of stuff. So that's really the big thing. And as Buddy over on Rumble points out, Morell has nothing to gain by lying. He's already like, by coming out and saying this, even if it's just a hint, by him coming out and saying this, he's literally putting his reputation and everything else on the line. He is taking a big risk to say this. I just don't see where the benefit is for him to come out and make this claim. I just don't see it. If it weren't the truth, I'm not exactly sure where that's going to go. But while all of this is going on in the entire thing, this popped, and this is NBC, by the way, but this popped recently, and apparently federal prosecutors are now considering up to 4 possible charges against Hunter Biden. Now, 3 of them, of course, deal with tax evasion, and one of them, of course, deals with the gun charge. Okay, but the federal prosecutors, even just the fact that the NBC News is even saying this is kind of interesting to point out. Now, okay, so let's be honest here. Let's assume that the Justice Department actually does their job and charges him with, let's just say, even 3 of the 4 counts or 2 of the 4 counts. What is it that he could potentially do for this, what would the potential penalties for these be? Well, the Washington Examiner has this piece, and they are basically saying now these are all, by the way, they're all felonies, by the way. Okay. And they essentially, so here they talk about NBC reported about the federal prosecutors with 3 tax crimes and a charge relating to the gun purchase. It basically said that the outlet said that the tax evasion charges could related to 2 potential misdemeanor counts and 1 potential felony count, while the gun charge is also a felony. They also said that 2 law enforcement sources spoke of growing frustration inside the FBI because investigations have finished the bulk of their work of the case about a year ago. And senior law enforcement source also said the IRS has finished its own investigation more than a year ago. And so this is going to be the thing. Well, under the tax fraud, if charged and convicted of felonious tax fraud, Hunter Biden would likely be hit with a fine, while jail time would be possible. Okay. Federal statutes on efforts to evade or defeat tax, according to 26 U.S. Code 7201, state that anyone who willfully attempts in any manner to evade or defeat any tax can be fined not more than $100,000 or imprisoned not more than 5 years, or both. But it is unlikely that Hunter Biden would be sentenced to anything close to the maximum. Okay. Now, of course, Hunter Biden revealed that he was under federal investigation for his taxes shortly after the 2020 election. But anyway, he had borrowed roughly $2 million on a past due tax bill, by taking out a loan from Hollywood lawyer Ken Morris. Okay. Now, on the gun charge, lying to the ATF is a potential federal felony under 18 U.S. Code 922, with a maximum prison sentence of 10 years behind bars. But again, it's unlikely that Hunter Biden would receive such a lengthy sentence if convicted. So on this count, copies of Hunter Biden's firearms transaction record dated October 12, 2018, reportedly show Hunter Biden responded no to a question on the transaction record that asks, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? And Hunter Biden and his family have publicly talked about his history of drug abuse. And his memoir, Beautiful Things, horrible title, discussed his illegal drug use before, during, and after that time frame. The laptop hard drive, again, the laptop that we're talking about, the laptop hard drive also contains extensive evidence of illegal drug use. Now, the GAO reported in 2018 the prosecutions for lying on a form are rare, but they do happen. The GAO also said the federal and state law enforcement investigate and prosecute a small percentage of individuals who falsify information on a firearms form. They also said that for the fiscal year of 2017, the year spanning just before Hunter Biden allegedly lied on his gun form, the ATF made 12,710 referrals for investigations, but the U.S. attorneys considered only 50 for prosecution, and just a dozen of those were actually prosecuted. So, yeah. Yeah, the chances of him actually doing this, I mean, so although the Justice, they round this out, although the Justice Department indicting the son of a sitting president would be a major development, the bigger questions remain as to whether or not the DOJ has been considering more significant charges tied to money laundering or foreign lobbying. and whether investigators have been looking into the national security implications of Hunter Biden's overseas business dealings, specifically or especially his association with businessmen linked to Chinese intelligence and his receipt of millions of dollars from CEFC, a since defunct Chinese energy conglomerate, which again has all been proven on his laptop. This guy is a major security risk. Even just the drug use alone would consider him a security risk, but his proximity to Joe Biden and his proximity to, let's not forget, the classified documents that were stored in Joe Biden's garage next to his Corvette. Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm sorry, but this guy, Joe Biden, should never have stepped foot in the White House at all, period. And it just keeps getting worse. But the challenge here is not so much that it's getting worse. It's the fact that nothing is being done about it, like Glenn Beck said. Okay, like Glenn Beck talks about. This is absolutely horrendous. Seriously, I can't even understand how we even got to this point in this country. We used to stand for truth, justice, and the American way. That was one of our growing up, that was like one of the things Superman used to always say. And here we are as an entire country, and we're just letting these people skate. The elites skate. The elites who feel like they deserve something more than what we, the smellies, get. Just like the way they reacted when Elon Musk took the Twitter blue checkmark away. It's like, pay your freaking $8. That's the way the new owner wants it. Pay the damn $8 if you want your checkmark. Don't sit there and complain about it because he's the owner of the company. And hey, you know what? You put up all of all of those arguments about, well, Twitter can do what it wants because of the fact that, they are a private company. Well, guess what? Reap what you have sown. Speaking about reaping what we have sown, we have decided to allow multitudes of people to decide that it is okay for men to be in women's locker rooms, or in this particular case, girls' locker rooms. This popped in the Epoch Times. Man claiming to be a woman exposed himself to high school girls, according to a letter. Now, here's the thing. Before people get into this, okay, he is the person who is claimed to have exposed himself in the letter. He is a student at the school. He has not graduated yet. However, his physical age is 18. He is a senior at the high school where this occurred. Okay. He is also known to the student body to identify as transgender. So just get those things clear out of the way. All right. However, that being said, it's kind of odd because if he were to do this in any other light other than claiming to be transgender, if he were doing this in any other light, he would immediately get arrested and called and potentially, if he got convicted for this kind of crime, he would be a sex offender, be part of the sex offender registry, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're losing our mind on this. Okay. But here's the story. An adult man claiming to be a woman went into a girl's locker room and exposed himself to 4 minors, according to a new letter. The alleged incident violated the girls' rights to privacy, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, WILL, said in the letter sent on April 19th to the Sun Prairie Area School District. After taking part in PE class at Sun Prairie East High School on March 3rd, 4 girls went into the girls' locker room to shower and change for the rest of the day, the Institute said. When they entered, they encountered an 18-year-old man who is a senior at the school. While the girls were surprised to see him in the locker room, they had a general idea that this student identifies as transgender and has used girls' bathrooms before. While they were uncomfortable, They proceeded to the shower area without interacting with the student, the letter says. The girls entered the shower area with their swimsuits on, which was their common practice as they rinsed off. As they began to shower, the male student approached them, entered the shower area, and announced, "I'm trans, by the way," and then undressed fully and showered completely naked right next to one of the girls. He was initially turned towards the wall, but eventually turned and fully exposed his male genitalia to the four girls. Understandably, the girls were caught off guard and shocked, closed their eyes, and tried to hurry up and leave the showers as quickly as possible. Another student who heard of what happened told an assistant principal, but instead of complying with federal law and reporting the incident to the school's Title IX coordinator, the officials said the girls could approach her. No one from the district contacted any of the girls' parents at that time, and no one investigated. To be clear, this means that the district's initial response to this incident violated Title IX. Will stated. The mother of one of the girls later spoke to Renee Coleman, the school's principal, who also failed to adhere to the federal law, according to the letter. So anyway, there were some other things that kind of went on, but as part of the letter, they did say, or they made a comment that there's no indication that the district intends to address this matter in any way or change any policy. Now, I seem to recall a student at Loudoun County who identified as transgender and then raped two, not one, but two separate girls in two separate schools. This is ridiculous, folks. We need to stop this crap. Okay? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, again, if an individual seriously is under a doctor's care for this stuff, fine. You can set up times for that person to go in and shower. There's ways around this that will keep the dignity of both sets of individuals, whether it's biological females. Now, these girls were reportedly 14 at the time that this incident happened. Now, I don't know about you, but at 14, I mean, girls, guys, it doesn't matter. You're going to be a little leery about undressing in front of strangers, period. Okay? But, I mean, honestly, why are we bending over backwards for these people? They have literally zero way to say one way or the other that they are X or Y or, transgender or not, girl or male or female. And the concept that they are able to just change it on a whim. Like one day they can identify as, if they're biological male, they can identify as a female and we have to buy into it. And then the next time that you meet them, they might say that they're non-binary. This is a feeling, folks. This is something that needs to be focused on seriously, these people need to be helped in a certain way, especially as young teenagers who still have not fully developed their brain. Now, you become, you go over the age, you're an adult and you decide that you're, something different or whatever. Go for it. Godspeed. Okay. But these are kids. Kids don't know what they are from day to day. They are trying so hard to fit in with a crowd that they have literally no clue from day to day what they're going to be. Back in my day, when I went to school, it was seriously whether I was going to be a stoner or a jock or, a dweeb or a geek or whatever. And, some of us moved between groups depending upon the situation. But honestly, the whole point of teenage years is trying to fit in with your peers. And so this is what the left is pushing, to try and get these kids to identify as something and fit in because they crave that attention. They crave that desire to fit in with a group because it's the peer pressure that's involved. The same thing was done with smoking. If you didn't smoke, you could get into a particular situation where you would be, peer pressured into smoking in the boys' room or the girls' room. This is literally no different than being peer pressured into drinking, peer pressured into drugs. Children should not have to go through this. We are supposed to, as adults, protect children from predators. We're not doing a very good job here, folks. And by the way, the left keeps pushing that it's the right that are doing the war on transgenderism. Yeah, no. Okay. Read this piece from the Washington Examiner. This breaks it down really clear for you. Okay. The left is the one that started this. The left is the one that is pushing this. The left is the one that is asking for all of this. And again, I ask, where are all the Democrat mothers of these kids? Realistically, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. You're a mother. You are supposed to protect your children. I know as a father, I worry about stuff like this all the time because this is one of those things that you have to try and feel your way through. Well, I'm sorry, but no. No, I don't. Now, I see I'm starting to run out of time here, so I want to kind of wrap this up. But one thing that I did look into, and you can go through the show notes, in several documents. One of the things that the left claims is that pushing the transgender, gender affirming care. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Pushing the gender affirming care is what's going to help these kids. And they keep pushing this idea that in order to help these kids, we must allow them to get on puberty blockers, and we have to allow them to be in or go through just basically irreversible surgery in order for them to be who they really are. Transgender affirming care. Okay. Again, I'm going to maintain, if you're an adult, you decide to pay for it on your own, that is entirely up to you. You are completely free to do that here in America. That's the way we are. Just like you can go and get tattoos everywhere, just like you can go and get, spikes sticking out of your head or however you want to do it. That's entirely up to you. Okay. But the thing about it is that we have to protect the kids. We have to focus on the kids. We have to give them what they want. Now, or we have to give them the help that they need. Now, the thing about it is that we're starting to understand and get more studies and more data on this stuff. But we cannot sit here and just automatically jump to the idea that gender affirming care, putting them on puberty blockers and everything, is the way to go, because it's not. Check this out. This from PJ Media. Okay. European reviews find that gender transition does not solve the mental problems. Now, this is essentially a review of some reports and some studies that have been putting out there. But the point is that on April 14th, for a current sexual health report, a review published on April 14th for current sexual health reports acknowledged the fact that hacking off body parts and halting normal puberty development doesn't create the utopian joy that LGBTQ activists anticipate. Okay. Now, this is the report. I've got this linked in there, but under recent findings, this basically says systemic reviews of evidence conducted by public health authorities in Finland, Sweden, and England concluded that the risk-benefit ratio of youth gender transition ranges from unknown to unfavorable. As a result, there has been a shift from gender affirmative care, which prioritizes access to medical interventions, to a more conservative approach that addresses psychiatric comorbidities and psychotherapeutically explores the development and etiology of the trans identity. Debate about the safety and efficacy of gender-affirming care in the USA is only emerging. So in other words, we don't have a lot of data on this. And so here's the thing. Here's one. This is transgendertrend.com that basically talked about suicide facts and myths. And one of the things, and it kind of goes through a couple of studies, and it basically says that there's some issues with the studies. They're not conclusive. They were done a long time ago. There's some issues that are going on with them. Same thing in the US. They're just not there. But one of the things that I did want to pull out is the idea, because I've heard Ben Shapiro say this, that suicidal ideation is not changed. And I wanted to check and find where he comes up with that idea. Well, this answers the question. So this basically says, does medical transition help to reduce suicidal ideation? The critical question is, does transition help to reduce suicidal ideation? This is a key question in the treatment of adolescents, but the evidence we have is mixed. The claim that allowing children to take puberty blockers will improve psychological well-being is sometimes made on the basis of low-quality research and flawed evidence. A recently high-publicized study, for example, was found to be unreliable and misleading in an analysis by Michael Biggs. Okay. Now, it also continues down here further where it talks about, let's see. Okay. So here in the conclusion of this, it basically says, in conclusion, although the statistics for suicide attempts have been exaggerated, this is a psychologically highly vulnerable population. A young person with mental health problems needs psychotherapeutic support, and a young person who is feeling suicidal needs urgent psychiatric care. Much more research is needed into different care pathways for young people with gender dysphoria. Okay. They're basically saying that in this clinical area, it is especially important to understand the possible underlying causative factors in suicidal ideation and provide appropriate therapeutic treatment. As the alternative, puberty blockers carries a risk of exacerbating depressive symptoms. Depression is listed as a very common or very common adverse effect of the drug triptorelin, triptorelin, which is a form of blocker used by a company, Tavistock. So here's the thing. Realistically, okay, we have some issues, and it's not just these guys. I actually added the Heritage Foundation, even though a lot of people don't like it because it's more right-leaning, but they had a couple of studies, or they had a couple groups that basically, or a couple of papers where they talk about it, and it basically says the same kind of thing. First of all, we don't have enough data to 100% fully understand what's going on, but second of all, the assigning of puberty blockers doesn't necessarily cause the happy euphoria that you get. They actually even called it out. The first 18 months of being on puberty blockers, yes, but it returns. And it's not just a study where, kids are saying this. They've actually looked at detransitioners, and they've talked to detransitioners, and the results that come back is the detransitioners are all saying the same thing, that after the euphoria went away of being on the puberty blockers at first, the thoughts of suicide and self-harm come back. Yeah. Anyway, so once again, the left is pushing something that realistically they have no business pushing. All right, let me go ahead and get on to my question for Whiskey. I really got to remember these buttons, guys. Questions for Whiskey. All right, tonight's submission is by Amy Jean Viner over on Rumble. Amy writes, "Hey, Whiskey. If the Supreme Court has already ruled abortion goes back to the states, shouldn't the abortion pill be decided by the states too?" Okay. So here's the thing. And this is this is really the hard part when dealing with bodies such as the Supreme Court. The challenge all comes down in terms of how narrow they've actually created their opinions, their final opinions to be. And so I'd have to take a look at the whole thing about the Roe v. Wade Dobbs overturn decision in order to fully understand why they would even consider doing this and taking this on. But here's the thing. Okay. The reason why the abortion pill is going to the Supreme Court is because the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in the federal court and the federal court in Texas issued conflicting opinions, meaning that the one in Texas said it was not available. The one for the Washington state, along with other courts, have issued in the affirmative. So you have two conflicting district court opinions. And so that is the reason why it's showing up at the Supreme Court, is because you have, two separate district courts that are ruling in separate ways. Okay. Now, here's the thing. If the Supreme Court had done realistically what they should have done and have consistently fallen down on, they should have, any time something goes up that is not included in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, any time they get a lawsuit or something in front of them that, again, is not part of Article 1, Section 8, which clearly defines what Congress is supposed to be able to do and legislate on, then it falls under what's called the 10th Amendment, my particular favorite of all the amendments. And essentially, the 10th Amendment basically says, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but this is pretty close. The 10th Amendment says if it doesn't show up in the Constitution, specifically as a purpose of the federal government, nor does it say that it denies the ability of anybody else to administer on it. In other words, it says that, oh, shoot, I'm getting myself all messed up here. Hold on. Let me just read it because it's so short. I mean, it is literally short. It's one of the shorter ones of the Constitution. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. All right. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So in other words, if it isn't contained in here, nor specifically written in here as a denial to the states, then it automatically becomes a state issue, or the people themselves have to vote on it. That should be that honestly, I mean, in my opinion, that should be everything. That should be, no matter what, it should be everything that the federal government is doing that is not written in the state. That should be the one amendment that is the most used. But it's not. And the Supreme Court should actually have been using it multiple times and been like, you know what? This is a 10th Amendment issue because it's not written in the Constitution that we need to do things like, same-sex marriage, abortion. Those two are the two that are right off the top of my head. Alcohol. Alcohol should have been a thing. Blocking it. Those are the ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. But realistically, they should always have come down to the 10th Amendment. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court doesn't, when they give opinions and rulings, they don't look to the document that they're supposed to be the most knowledgeable in. And I even fault things like Clarence Thomas and Justice Samuel Alito and all of those things. I blame them too, because they're not doing what they should be doing, which is essentially saying this is a 10th Amendment issue. It has nothing to do with the federal government, and therefore, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with the mask mandates. That should have been their response. Honestly, should have been, you know what? This is a state issue. End of story. Federal government has no business in this. Same thing with the ACA. Federal government has no business being in this. It's not a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. It's done. 10th Amendment, out. That should be their answer to everything. But they're not going to do it. So we'll see what happens. Honestly, I mean, I would think that it would fall under the same realm, but who knows? With this court, I have no idea. And actually, the decision to allow or to not grant a stay, like the Texas court had requested and ruled, the decision to overrule that on the Texas went to a split of 7-2, with the only two people dissenting, I think, were Clarence Thomas and I think Alito also. So yeah. I mean, I don't hold a lot of high hopes for this particular one, that I think that they're going to punt it to the FDA and just say, the FDA knows what they're doing. There you go. And I don't hold a lot of confidence in that. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're going to have to hear it and decide on it, I'm sure. But anyway. All right. Last thing, Music Man. Nothing new. I did talk about the patches. I've got some patches on order. I'm waiting for them to come in, and they're going to be a patch that goes right here with my logo on it, in order to make it distinct from where this hat gets made. And once that happens, then yes. But thank you very much for the $5 Rumble rant. I do appreciate that. Appreciate the contribution and to the program. So anyway, that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you like the program, you like what I talk about, head on over to Rumble, because I have a feeling YouTube's going to kick me off here in a minute, or ban me for life or whatever. But anyway, do me a favor, head on over to Rumble, sign up. I actually have sent out a referral link in my social media, but you don't need it. Just head on over to rumble.com, sign up for an account. It's free, meaning no cost to you. And go ahead and, follow the Whiskey Musings broadcast over there on Rumble. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your weekend, folks. Good night, everybody.